credit cards. He's wearing the camouflage now. Joel, hi.
Hello, John. How are you?
What prompted Big Debt Switch?
Well, John, it was a combination of things. We've got over 500,000 members around the country, and we often ask them what they'd like us to campaign on next. And we asked them a couple of weeks ago, and credit cards was right up there, 20% of people saying it should be our next big collective switching campaign. We've done electricity campaigns in the past, health insurance, home insurance, petrol and groceries. We've never tackled credit cards, and we've always had our eye on this particular, what we call a hidden household bill. It's the one that is often not acknowledged, but is causing some serious damage to household budgets.
And what do they tell you, Joel, when they spoke to you re their credit card? What was the issue?
They're signing up in their droves. We've got 23,000 households now joined in the last few days, which is an amazing response, really. It shows, I think, that there is a lot of emotion out there about credit card debt generally and about the high interest rates, which have not even budged since the GFC, even though the cash rate, the RBA cash rate, has plummeted to 2%.
What are we talking about? Is it around...
Interest rates are still right up there at 18.
Oh, is it around 18? I thought it might be 21, 22, 23%.
Well, they get as high as 23 even, but the average, and this is an average, is around 18. So the people who are joining are telling us, the vast majority are saying they've got 18, 19, 20, 21, around that sort of vicinity.
Would you have a figure on how many people let it roll over and pay the minimum every month, and how many people pay it off in full? What kind of percentage of the population do which one?
Sure. Based on what people are telling us as they join up, about a third pay it off every month, and about a third never pay it off, and another third sometimes pay it off. So that's the rough breakdown at the moment. The official figures are pretty similar. They say that about 2/3 to 3/4 of people, don't every month pay that balance off, and so they are paying interest on the balance.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? You go to the grocery store, you buy a loaf of bread, and you buy a can of baked beans. You put it on your credit card, and you're paying 18% for the loaf of bread and the can of baked beans. Whose responsibility is that, though? Isn't the message getting through to people that, you know what, if you don't actually attack your credit card debt first, and, often when you go to some kind of debt reconciliation, they tell you that the credit card debt is the one thing you need to address first up, Joel.
I don't think it is getting through, John. I think people probably have their heads in the sand on this one a bit, and they pay the minimum repayment each month, and that makes it go away for another 30 days, and then, as you said, they get that bill and they have that awful moment where they look at the balance again, and then it goes in the bin all over again. I think some people just are in so much debt that they don't really know how to get out of it, and others are just, I suppose, making like ostriches, putting their heads in the sand, and credit card debt's becoming this kind of dirty little secret that we have, which we don't really talk about, but clearly it's a massive issue.
What about all these advertising campaigns that I see that encourage you to switch from one credit card to another, and they'll offer you kind of a short-term enticement to come over? What's the hidden catch there, Joel?
Well, there can be catches. For example, there are often balance transfer offers or interest-free periods when you switch to a new credit card. Sometimes the balance transfer offer may be great. It may be 0% for a year or whatever, but then after the year, it jumps right up to over 20% on whatever's left of the balance. And, human nature being what it is, a lot of people don't pay the balance off in that time. They just use that balance transfer and the interest-free period to spend some more money, put some more money on the card, and just avoid the interest for a little while.
So Joel, is there an onus on financial institutes to educate customers better on this? I think on one of my credit card statements, it tells me that how long it will take to pay off a particular bill, and then on another one, it doesn't mention anything of the sort. So where does the onus fall on this particular issue?
Well, you think it should be shared, John. On the one hand, there have been all sorts of calls as a part of this Senate inquiry for increased regulation over credit cards, and some of those seem like relatively common sense suggestions. For example, why is the minimum repayment as low as 2% of the balance sometimes? Why doesn't the minimum repayment at least cover the interest bill? We think that's a pretty common sense suggestion. On the other hand, consumers do have to take a little bit more personal responsibility. A lot of us are spending money that's not ours, and sort of kicking the can down the road when it comes to taking responsibility for that debt. And our campaign's partly about getting people to switch on to how much it's costing them and give them some alternatives and make them realise that there is a range of alternatives out there. There is some, there's not a lot of competition in this market, partly because consumers don't shop around enough.
With the credit card Senate inquiry continuing tomorrow in Melbourne, do you think any of that stuff that you just spoke about, for example, the minimum payment being raised a little bit high, would that go some way in addressing or at least helping some people out of trouble?
We think it would. We think that's one of the ones that seems to have pretty widespread support. Some other suggestions have been, for example, at the moment, if you tick a box when you apply for a credit card that says you're happy to receive invitations for credit limit increases, the bank can then send you as many as they want at their discretion. There are some saying that they shouldn't be able to do that, essentially, that once you apply for a credit limit and you're given a credit limit, that you should have to initiate any application for a credit limit increase with the bank or with the other, the credit card provider, whoever it is.
Look,
that's another one that's been given pretty widespread support, I'd say, in the inquiry hearings.
Yeah, we heard all about irresponsible lending, post GFC. Is this another case of irresponsible lending by our financial institutes when you've got someone that's still, got a relatively hefty chunk of debt, paying 18% and offering them an increase on their credit limit?
There certainly seems to be a bit of that going around. I mean, you do hear some horror stories about young apprentices on the first day in the job getting their first paycheck and getting, thousands of dollars in credit limit from their financial institution on a credit card. That's a recipe for disaster. We're definitely finding with this campaign, this is a real issue with Gen Y, because I suppose there isn't maybe sufficient financial education, consumer education around the pitfalls of debt. And a lot of young people are getting themselves into thousands of dollars of debt. They're not earning a lot of money, so they're finding it very hard to get out of that hole. And sometimes they get into that debt spiral where they end up borrowing from payday lenders and paying a fortune and in real trouble.
So what are you hoping to achieve with the big debt switch?
Well, I guess we think of our campaign as running in parallel with the Senate inquiry. The Senate inquiry is really about policy reforms and reforms for the regulation of credit cards, and we hope that there'll be some common sense results from that process. But on our side, what we're trying to do is to shake the tree with consumers and get consumers to switch on to what credit card debt is costing them and get them to see the range of options out there. And we're going to use the combined buying power of the people who join up to negotiate a range of group discounted offers that could help people to save on their credit card debt, or even better, to pay it off altogether.
All right, Joel Gibson, thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for having us, John.